The 28th, 2018. I just arrived in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam last night. I've just come to a very important historical site. June 11th, 1963. John F. Kennedy is President of the United States, and we have a small presence of American forces and aid going to the South Vietnamese government. Vietnam is over 70%, potentially up to 90% Buddhist at the time, but those who hold all the government positions and offices and other centers of power within the South Vietnamese government were almost completely Catholic, and they were suppressing the religious freedom of the Buddhists in Vietnam at the time. There's a lot of history there. You can go look into it yourself. In a nutshell, things got really bad for a while, and there were protests. There were continually protests going on, and eventually there was a monk here, a Buddhist monk. We'll take some video of his name. I don't know the correct spelling. I've heard it pronounced different ways throughout my life. It's like T-H-I-C-H-Q-U-A-N-G-D-U-C. I would call that Thich Quang Duc. Protest for the religious freedom of Buddhists to practice their faith freely within South Vietnam. He did it by engulfing himself in flames, had gasoline poured onto himself, and then sat in the lotus position, set himself afire, and sat quietly and still while his body was engulfed in flames, and he burned up until only small pieces of him were left. This marks the spot here where the self-immolation took place. I'm actually not sure what this pad is about. Maybe to protect the spot. There's this place set up here for people to pay their respects. Here we are, 55 years later, and I can tell you, standing here right now, I've already walked around and taken some pictures, but standing here right now, I've been here for probably 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and the hair is still literally standing on my arms and on the back of my neck as I walk around and look at this memorial. Buddhists and other people come, they burn their incense, pay their tribute. Over here is where you put a little bit of tribute money in. You can get your incense and light it here. Put it here with all the other burning incense, and then people typically will kneel and pray, or just pay their respects with their hands in the prayer. Well, in Western world we would think of as a prayer position, hands together. See, happens to have flowers and other things sitting around. I think tributes that other people have brought. Vietnam is a place that I have heard about all my life. I'm 40 years old. I was born 3 years after the embassy, the U.S. Embassy fell in Saigon here in what is now Ho Chi Minh City in 1975. I was born 3 years later. But the war in Vietnam and the history of America's involvement in Vietnam has been, I mean, it's been there all my life. I don't know how many times, how many documentaries I've seen, how many books I've read, how many times it's come up in school and it's referenced on television and pop culture. Vietnam is a huge part of our American history. History. So at 40 years old, for the first time in my life now being here, it's a big deal to kind of see this, where and where this happened, events, and one of those things that led into America's deep involvement in Vietnam, where over 58,000 American soldiers lost their lives, where well over 2 million North Vietnamese and millions upon millions of Vietnamese died. And yeah, anyway, I've still got goosebumps. Just wanted to share this one with y'all. Get a little incense, and I'm going to pay my own.